It was about 10:30 on March 29th in the morning when the shells came in to the location where they were digging out the trench. And after I got there, I was there just in time to catch a mortar. It landed right in front of me. It hit me in the neck, stomach, and leg. I was bleeding quite badly out the neck. The uniform at the time was a flak jacket, which thank God I did have on, so I was protected from my waist up to my neck. Then, after I was hit, I went paralyzed on the left side of my body from the shell that went into my neck. It hit a nerve bundle up there. And the people helped me down off the hill. We stumbled and staggered down from the top of T-Bone to a flat area on the back side of the hill. Got on the litter at that point. One of the medics put a bandage around my neck. The leg and stomach shots were okay. They didn't need any bandaging really. So they let that go. And they basically dragged me down off the hill on that litter. I was trying to hold on as well as I could, and they were manhandling me down. Again, glad I wasn't very fat, so they were able to handle that pretty well. We got down to the bottom of the hill, and they had a collecting point there. They put my litter on the Jeep and drove me back to the aid station. That seemed like about a 30-minute trip, although it probably wasn't near that long. When we got to the aid station, they checked my wound. They bandaged up my leg. Then they put me on a helicopter. It was kind of a neat ride, except for the fact I was going to freeze to death. Everybody piled 2 or 3 blankets on top, but nobody thought to put any blankets underneath. When you got on that helicopter pad, you're out there on the little pod, and they've got the plastic cover over your face. And I was never so cold in my life. That was horrible. And I stayed awake through the helicopter ride back to the MASH unit. When we got to the MASH, I remember being taken off of the helicopter. And as we went into the MASH unit, I blacked out. And at that time, everything just got black, and then the next thing I knew, I was on a cloud looking down. And I remember being very annoyed because they wouldn't stop. I could see one group at my neck and one down in my belly. And I wanted them to stop what they were doing. But for some reason, they wouldn't do it. And I don't know how long that went on, but I'd actually gotten to see my flashback of the family. My grandparents had been dead for years, my mother and all people like that. Then I finally came to on March 1st, or April 1st. I was out from the 29th to the 1st. I remember waking up in this room. It seemed very dark, and it was like a barracks with a row of bed with all the wounded on it. And they eventually got me up and had me walk the first time then. That was awful. It felt like my belly was going to fall out of me. I had a 12-inch scar in the middle of my stomach. So they obviously had repaired a lot of intestinal damage. And after a couple of days there, they put me on a bus and they hauled me down to an evacuation hospital. And by this time I was conscious and able to take light food. Wasn't doing any particular walking around. My stomach was all bandaged up. The wound in the gut actually had been closed with wire sutures. And every time you moved, the wire caught on the abdominal bandage. So that was very painful. And it turned out later, I found out I had received 13 units of blood during the operation. So I had a lot to be thankful for. At this time, my left side of my body had come back. I could feel things. I lost the feeling in 3 fingers in my right hand from the nerve damage. But other than that, it worked out pretty well. A few days at the evacuation hospital. Then they put us on a train. I have no idea where we went to, but it was a collecting point again with another little hospital. And from there, they air evac'd us back to Tokyo. Everything I'm looking at then is from a litter, so I have no idea where I was at the time. I do remember the train ride on the litter. Everybody was taking pretty good care of us. We had nurses by this time. Okay, eventually we made it back to Tokyo Army Hospital. While I was there, I couldn't have been there maybe 4 or 5 days, and they took out the metal suture from my stomach wound. And that was such a wonderful thing, because every time you moved with the metal, it would hang up on the abdominal dressing and rip you apart. Once they took the stitches out, I was able to go get a shower. I remember going into the shower room, and the nurse would send people in to see if I was okay. It felt so good to have warm, clean water. I must have been in there for an hour anyway. And that was delightful. And I was ambulatory at that time. And still had my meals brought to me at the bed. While I was there, other soldiers from the Able Company, 17th, were coming through. This was from the early battle on Pork Chop in April of '53. And so I saw all my buddies coming in there and got to chat with them a bit. I was there for probably 2 weeks. Then they felt I was well enough to leave and went over to a recuperation camp. Basically, it was just a barrack where we sort of had a pretty nice life. I did a lot of walking. They did dental checkup and all this for your general health. And they gave you time to become ambulatory and build up your strength. At that point, I did not have any of the soldiers from the 17th with me. I was just kind of on my own. But after I was there a while, they decided that I could go back to the state and finish my recuperation there. But I had the urge to go back to my unit. So I told them that I voluntarily requested to return to Able Company 17th. And after a few days, they cut orders, and sure enough, on the order, it said I was reassigned to Able Company of the 17th. When the fellows from the 17th were coming into Tokyo Army to join me, it became obvious that they'd had a major battle on Pork Chop in April, and they were telling about it. I don't remember much of the details of it, other than the fact that most of them described it as pretty uncomfortable. Again, 18 years old, what do you know about uncomfortable? When they finally cut the order for me, I was very happy to be going back to the 17th. This would have been probably at least the end of May, and I thought it was a rather neat thing to be able to go back to my unit and join my buddies again. Although I should have realized by this time the buddies had all rotated out, so I wasn't going to return to many that I really knew. But it was still what I felt was the right thing to do.